Hello, and welcome to the BOWA Show. We're in episode 9 of Quarantine, Ben, or 10?
I thought, yeah, I think 9. I can't remember.
Everything's blending together now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, Sean.
It is a tough time for the world right now. And we took last week off with Memorial, and Ben is still doing a lot of renovation on his home.
Yep.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you see his face struggling right now because he knows he is under a great undertaking. So we took last week off, the crazy thing too is that we were thinking about just, hey, maybe we take this week off. It's Blackout Tuesday, and we're not going to release this episode on the Tuesday in honor of that said point. It's tough times in this country right now and around the world, and we've been dealing with Corona for the last month and a half to 2 months of our lives, and everybody has been under a powder keg ready to explode. And it's just seen that explosion happen over the last 5 days or so, going back to what now, I believe it was May 24th that George Floyd lost his life. And we have seen the country in a state of unrest that is, again, pretty unprecedented. It's crazy the amount of times that we've had to say that in 2020 already. It's unprecedented. It's something that we haven't seen before. The protests around the country, the rallying around the focus of police brutality and the conversation that it sparks. You see both the good and the bad. You see protests, which leads us to our good news for today. Just short, sweet, and to the point, as this entire episode is going to be for you guys. As we were talking about, we decided that we needed to get something out there, and I have seen everybody and their brother with their opinion on Facebook and Twitter and different news sources, and this is a topic that everybody's weighing in on, and you can't help but, because it's all that the conversation is right now. And we had to put something out because this is the BOWA Show. It's living a positive life in a world that makes that incredibly difficult at times. And these are incredibly difficult times. And we're facing a situation that, a lot of people hope they never have to go through in their life. But the reality of everything is that we're all going through this right now. And you can't just sit back and ignore it. This isn't the time for that. And we have both sides that are incredibly rooted in. We have people who are, some people are filled with hate. There is a lot of anger out there. There is a lot of sorrow for lives that have been lost. There, is a lot of resentment towards the police force. And then you have the people who are on the other side that are staunchly rooted into Blue Lives Matter. And, that they feel that it's, the entire labeling of the police force based on the actions of a few, and the division that causes, the lines that have been drawn, lead to a lot of pain and a lot of hatred. And unfortunately, the news cycle that we have only feeds on that, and they try and make it worse, and they try and show those negatives. You see far more of the looting and the rioting and the cities burning down than you ever do of the Flint police force that joined in on the march with their people, and the sheriff coming and saying, we love you guys. We're a part of this community. This guy does this, and this guy does this, and this guy does this, and we're all active in this community. We do not want to stand against you. We want your voices to be heard. And to see how different that rally goes, than the other places that are exercising the extreme force, that are throwing the hammer down at people, and you're watching it bubble over. And it's heartbreaking, man. As somebody who is an extreme empath, I feel the pain of the world right now, and it can't help but weigh heavy on you. And I know that it's weighing heavy on everybody. It's not just me. and we couldn't just sit back and do nothing this week. So we're just going to keep a short episode, though. The good news for this week is straight from my hometown. I don't even need a news article because I have been paying attention to it myself. So the good news for this week is that Muskegon, my city where I am at, held a very peaceful protest, and the police force did not stand in the way of anyone. They joined in on the cause. They realized that it was just people wanting their voices heard, and standing in their way is only going to escalate the situation. There were a lot of warnings going into it that they felt like Muskegon might be one of those powder keg cities, and I am extremely thankful and grateful that it did not turn into any kind of situation like that. So, for some good news this week, it's real easy. Thank you to the city of Muskegon for doing their part in a peaceful protest this weekend.
Absolutely, and I think that's something where if you're not up to date on it, it's got a very strong social media presence. If you're not hearing about it from friends or you're not maybe up on the news, today's like you said, Blackout Tuesday, and what that really is about, um, taking a step back and giving a voice to the people who need it right now, so that they can really boast that voice and their message across the world right now in any way that they can. I know personally, us at work, we took a step back from our marketing because there are bigger things to worry about right now than what we are trying to sell.
Hmm.
There are things that need to get taken care of and things that need to get changed and fixed than what we're trying to sell, what we're trying to say. This is a time for me, especially as a person. I'm taking a step back so that other people who need to voice themselves right now have that opportunity and I'm not standing in the way or muddying up the waters. So I'm in support. I can't tell you how much. I think, Sean, our generation is going to be the one that really makes the biggest change in the world as we've seen it, just as we're having crazy times right now that are unprecedented. I think now is the time for change. There's never been a better time. If not now, when? And I think when is right now.
It is. And that ultimately kind of just brings me to everything that I hold on to through all of this, and that's hope. Is that, while this is a cry out for Black Lives Matter, you are seeing white people rallying to the cause. You're seeing the Latino community rallying to the cause. You're seeing countries around the world voice their support for the cause. And it's something that I'm incredibly proud to watch get that kind of attention.
Right.
And, the saddest thing to me is that there's never bringing back those lives. The loss of human life is final. And, taking someone's life is something that can never be undone. You see all of the people, and I don't condone riots. I don't condone violence. Me as the ultimate person who says live with love and kindness and compassion, I can still sit here and say, I can understand where you're coming from. And when you're bullied for years on end, it's going to bubble out in a lot of different ways. And you're seeing it bubble out in a lot of different ways. Who am I to ever tell somebody that the way that they feel emotionally is wrong? You know what I mean? Like, I don't get to tell people how they're allowed to react to stuff. I'm not a person of color who's dealt with discrimination and prejudice and racial profiling, and I don't have the right to tell people how they get to feel because they've experienced that kind of stuff in their life.
Yep.
And it's such a tough place for me to even speak on, because as I said, I know that love, kindness, and compassion guide my life, and they've taken me to incredibly awesome places. And I know that hatred would not take me to those same places. I don't know what music is playing behind me right now, but it fell out of place. And, I don't get to have the right to tell those people how to feel. I don't get to tell them what reaction is proper, because it's not my circumstance. I've never been there. The thing that I can tell you is that the response that I'm getting from a lot of white people does feel off, and that you can't put yourself in their shoes. You can't find the empathy to say that you can understand that this has gone on forever. You condemned Colin Kaepernick for taking his kneeling silent protest, and I saw people saying, "You son of a bitch," and you're burning his stuff that, his jerseys from Nike, and that was a totally silent, peaceful protest. and it was not acceptable. And now you're yelling at the same people who are rioting for the same cause that he knelt down for and saying, well, can't you just be peaceful? And it's like, no, because you didn't accept that when it was peaceful and nobody listened. These people riot because they don't feel heard. I think that's a Martin Luther King quote that I heard today, that
Hmm.
rioting is the language of the unheard. And
Right.
it's a lot of the Martin Luther King quotes that are being thrown out right now about peace and love and pacifism, because it was the cornerstone of Martin Luther King. He did live with love, and he did live with kindness, but he still saw that this thing is going to happen inevitably when people are ignored. And we're seeing it time and time again, and it breaks my heart that it's 2020. We don't need to be doing this stuff anymore. The cops who are good and peaceful and try to protect and serve their communities are the ones who need to be most vocal right now and saying, we condemn these actions. These are the actions of a few, and we will punish them and we will seek them out, and we will not rest until racism is eliminated from our police force, until excessive force is eliminated from our police force. And if you want to throw that shit at me, like you feel unsafe at your job, that these are police who are just trying to go home to their families at the end of the night, and any of that kind of stuff, well, you can choose your job. These people don't choose their skin color. They don't choose to live this life. They don't choose to have their life cut short and a moment reaction from police. And the sad thing is, this isn't even a circumstance that you can begin to justify like that. A split second decision that somebody makes that ends up costing someone their life is what we see time and time again in these circumstances. And this is not a split second decision. It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds of kneeling on someone's neck, of a constant complaint that he couldn't breathe. And it's because of that 8 minutes and 40 seconds that's how we're going to end today's show. We end every show with comedy, and we always, always, always end with a Dave outro or something else. And today we're going to end with 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence, because that is an unheard of amount of time to feel that you need to restrain someone like that. It's unacceptable, and we're seeing America tell people that it's unacceptable. I come from a unique perspective on this. My brother's a cop, like if anybody believes blue lives matter, I believe blue lives matter, but I will not stand for injustice. I will not stand for the loss of human life. I know what it's like to be painted as a criminal, and I'm a white person. I can't imagine what it's like to be painted like that and to be dealing with being a person of color on top of it. I can't even begin to put my mind around it. It breaks my heart, man.
I don't think there is any way to, Sean. And that's why I think it's really nice seeing everybody stand up for the same cause. And when I say everybody, I mean people of all walks of life, of all races. We are in this together, just as we have been throughout 2020 with various things. And I do feel a good feeling seeing that we are all saying the same thing, whether or not we come from the same place. We're all saying the same thing, that there needs to be change. It's unacceptable. I don't care where you come from or what perspective you have. I'm sitting here saying, I hear you. That's all I can say is I hear you, and I'm here to help support.
That's right. And that's all any person I mean, it's the reality of it. As a white person, that's what we can do. We can listen, we can hear, we can fight to elect people who will make changes. We can use our power. I pray with everything I have that young people actually show up and vote. Don't just make these demonstrations and then walk away and forget about it next week because the media is going to tell you to think about something else. This can't happen. We need to show up. We are the voice of the people if we show up in the numbers that we could. We can run this country. We can take things back. We can eliminate those corrupt people who make these decisions, but none of it happens if you don't show up at the polls. And unfortunately, as good as the rallying cry sounds, if you don't bring it to the ballot box, it doesn't mean shit. And so you need to remember that this fall and in every election cycle, you need to show up and you need to make your voice heard, because the people who are very outspoken that represent the radicals of each side are going to show up.
Yep.
And those are the people who have been making the decisions for us for the last 60 years of our lives. It's enough. We can't take this anymore, and we can't just sit back idly and do nothing. And I'm never here to tell you which political side is right, because the fact is they're both fucked. And I don't have any problem saying that. But you can find in all of your local elections, you can find people who are good people that are going to try and put in an effort to change things. You cannot just reelect the same political people who have been running the show for the last 30 years because it's just a name you recognize. We can't do that anymore. And I really, really have a hope for the future that we'll see the end to just the two-party system. I think that there will be someone who comes along who can be that independent that can change things. We haven't seen it yet, and the fact is we're still very rooted into Republican and Democrat, but with social media, with being able to capitalize on a lot more free advertising and stuff, I do believe that you may see a social media candidate of the future. Someone who's younger, someone who can use those platforms, who can get a following behind them, who can have a voice that speaks to all of us and actually has our best interests at heart. And I can't feel like we've had a politician who's been like that in a very long time.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, 100% support you on, getting to the ballot box. I don't think we can scream it enough. There's a group of us, myself included, that it blows my mind when I hear people, especially our age, Sean, that say, no, I don't vote. I don't, whatever. And there are people out there screaming for a voice
Yeah,
all over the world, not just here right now with our current events here. I'm talking around the world, people screaming for a voice. Here in America, we're lucky enough to have so many outlets. Each and every one of us has a voice. And one
right.
of the biggest voices we have is voting. Don't put people who are looking for their voice or trying to get their voice heard, don't make that in vain. Don't take the privilege that you have of being an American citizen and use your voice to make change in this world. And then use your real voice and your social media voice and your outward appearance and your personality. Take that voice and bring some change and positivity in your own surroundings as well.
That's right. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is we're all in this together, like it or not, we need everybody in on this to actually change things. We, as much as it's easy to paint all cops as assholes, my brother's not an asshole. He's a good guy and I know him personally, and I know that his personality is to make people laugh, and that's the Chris that's at home. But it's also very easy for me to recognize that there's a systemic problem that's going on here. And I'm the biggest believer in all lives matter, but all lives can't matter when black lives don't matter. And we're seeing time and time again that they don't. And there are people out there who say, like, well, who's actually saying that they don't matter? Well, I can't argue with the videos that are in front of me. I can't
Yeah.
argue with this happening time and time again. I also am someone who knows the statistics. You want to throw out that white people are also killed at an alarming rate by cops? Let's have that discussion too, because all it equates to is more police brutality. It is a problem, and it's especially a problem for poor people. This
Mhm.
is where you see it rampant, is in poor communities, whether you're a majority black community or you're a poor white community. You see these issues happening. You see the excessive force from police on a consistent basis that's just swept under the rug in these communities time and time again. But I'm willing to say that we need to make priorities happen. What am I always talking about on this show? Baby steps. If you want to say, well, what about all the white people who are killed by cops? Well, if we can stop getting black people killed by cops, maybe we would have a bigger spotlight on all the white people who are killed by cops too. If we get the spotlight on something, the fact is these people are outraged because of 400 years of continued problems for them, going all the way back to slavery years and everything else through the present, and going through Jim Crow laws, and watching the strides that you have made in racial equality in this country, and so many more rights given to minorities, and we still deal with the same bullshit over and over and over again. It's mind blowing to me. As much as I love being about positivity, I'm never going to be unrealistic. You have to look at the world as it is. This is a problem. This is absolutely a problem, and it's up to us to voice our opinion about that. I love my brother. I love most of the cops that I've had to interact with in my life. I know that I probably have a very different interaction with a lot of those cops because of the fact that I'm a white male, and the fact is I'm not going to get pulled over randomly just because anymore. I'm a 30-year-old white man living in a white man's world, and I am open to saying that a lot of the laws that we have in place, a lot of the things that we have in place are built to favor me. That doesn't mean I've had an easy life. That doesn't mean I've had a life without obstacles. I know that I have because I talk about it for the first 3 episodes of this fucking show. I know that I've had problems, but I can still easily say that I know what white privilege is, because if my last possession charge and I would have been black, I'd be in prison right now. They wouldn't have hesitated to charge me with felonies, and they would have said you're going to do 3 to 5 years. That's the situation that I would have been in if not for the fact that I was a 24 or a 21-year-old white kid who just needed a break. And how many of those same 21-year-old black kids just need a break and they don't get it? So I fully recognize where white privilege does come into play for me, and I know that it's realistic. I'm not willing to sit back and say that it doesn't exist just because I've had a difficult life. The fact is, white privilege doesn't mean you've had an easy life. White privilege means that your life wasn't made harder because of the color of your skin. And when you look at it from that way, I feel like it's much easier for you to take in, that it's like
Thank you.
when you say it like that, it totally changes a lot of people's opinion about it.
It does, and that's the thing is people are saying things the wrong way. There's a million different ways to structure a sentence, but when you say it like that, your life has not been easy, but it certainly has not been made harder by the color of your skin. That if that doesn't get through to people, I don't know what will. I
Right.
also am so sick and tired of everybody comparing their problem to another problem to make the other problem seem menial.
Yep.
My ass, they're both problems. There is
Yep.
no justification by saying, well, yes, there's white people getting killed by cops as well. What does that solve? You know what
Right.
it doesn't solve? Either of the problems. You know what it does solve? People now know how big of a fucking idiot you are. So there you
It,
go. That problem is solved. People don't have to wonder anymore. You're a fucking idiot.
just more division when you
I
could
I
be
I just
focusing
hate.
on the coming together.
I cannot stand it. I There are so many bigger things to worry about than trying to make your problem one upped on somebody else's problem. They're fucking problems,
Yep.
people. You know,
And just because you
we're
have
all so angry. Yeah,
just because you have problems doesn't mean you can't acknowledge that someone else has them too. It's not a one-upmanship. It's not a contest. We're all riding our own path in this world. We're all going to have different obstacles. We're all going to have to overcome challenges, but I have made it my promise in this world, and I will continue every day of my life to make sure that I don't make other people's lives harder. Life is tough enough as it is. I tell that to everybody who says thank you to me for like you'll be waiting in line for lunch and like the person will be like, thank you for being so patient. And it's like, no, 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 it's totally okay. I get it. Life's hard enough without me making it any harder on you. And that always gets such a unique response from people where they're like, huh, I appreciate that.
right.
And it's the absolute truth though. And that goes to all my brothers and sisters in this world, everybody. I pray that one day we can look at what race I am, and I am a member of the human race. I don't care what walk of the world you come from. If you need my back, I've got your back, and I hope you give me yours. You need that shoulder to cry on or that ear to listen. I'm here for you. I don't care where you're from. I don't care where you've been. We can talk about it. And the only time that we lose is when we turn our backs on each other. And I see way too much of people turning their backs on each other in this world, and I
Mhm.
just pray every day that we can come back together and let's not fucking have this division. Let's focus on what we can do. Let's all help out each other. Let's make Black Lives Matter, and then we can shout from the rooftops that finally all lives do matter.
100%. And what I love, Sean, and we talk about it all the time, that a win is when there is more with positivity. When there's more positivity than negativity, it's a win. Now, I'm not going to say that we're winning right now, but what I am going to say is that I do feel like the majority of people in our nation specifically feel the same way that you and I are talking right now. It doesn't mean that we're winning.
No.
It means that we're working to stomp out and we're on the winning side. We just have to keep pushing until every bit of stupid, ignorant racism is no longer. Where, everybody's saying have these strong talks with your children. And I agree. Please do it. When you're in your family, in your home, have these tough conversations. Because I know once you do, that person is going to live and breed and have their own children that they don't have to have these conversations with, hopefully, because we're all having them right now. Let's take the time to talk about this, solve it, and every generation there's going to be less and less, and you can convert people. Everybody says, can't teach old dogs new tricks. Some people are so rooted in their ideals and their beliefs. That's fine. There will always be somebody you can't change their opinion, but that does not mean that you can't try. You got to have these conversations. We have to have them. When I was in college, we were right at the point where we were having these deep conversations, but it was still uncomfortable. It still is, even in 2020, obviously. But we're getting closer because we're trying to have these conversations. This isn't going to get solved by covering things up. And, everybody always said, don't talk about politics or anything like that at the table, right? There's certain things you don't talk about at the kitchen table. Fuck it. You have to. Because you know what happens when you just don't talk about them? They sit there and they stay deep rooted and they never get changed. That is an old way of thinking. This is 2020. We've already dealt with a pandemic this year. The real pandemic is the one that's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and that's human racism. It's got to go. We're battling two pandemics right now, and this one, I believe, is more important.
And more importantly, it's curable.
It's very
you know,
curable.
you
We
know,
don't have to
one
have scientists figure this shit out. All we have to
no,
do is look inside of ourselves.
we don't need a vaccine for racism. We need love, and we need people to start seeing that again. And that's why I had to get out there to say something to people. Don't lose that love for yourself. Don't forget the fact that you can keep compassion with you. You can keep empathy. Put yourself in other people's shoes. Even when you feel so strongly to just disagree with someone, to hate them fundamentally to your core, just remember that most people's opinions were formed at an early age, and some of the warped things that they believe were forced on them by their parents and their parents' parents. And it's a systemic problem that's built in. You'll never change their heart with hate, though. I know that. And as tough as it can be, as brutal as it is, please keep love in your heart, because I promise it will always take us to better places than the hate ever will. Even though the hate is so easy to be there, and it's so easy to let it fill you because it's so well deserved right now. But as tough as it is to live with life, I know for a fact that it's worth it. And that's the only thing that I can promise you matters.
Man, you know, it just makes me think, like, I've heard it quite a few times lately that, you can't, how many times have you been yelled at or scolded at for your beliefs, and how often did it change your mind
Right?
or change your opinion?
Never.
Same thing with hate. It's the easy thing to do to yell and scream and hate. And because it's easy, it's very easy to overlook too. Somebody's yelling at me. Why would I listen to them or take them seriously? Love. Just show love. And in everything you do, the way that I live, Sean, and I know the way that you live, is I try to speak my mind and make sure that people know me through the way that I am. Not through what I say, but 99% of it through the person that I am, the way that I act, and the way that I treat other people.
Hmm.
That's the bet. We say it all the time. Be the change you want to see in the world. It's not cliche, and it's not the only place for it isn't hanging above your girlfriend's toilet in the bathroom.
Right.
Be the change you want to see in the world. It's not the easiest thing to do because we all give in and have these split second moments of emotion, but these are the times to stop acting on emotion, to think, and then go off of the new emotion once you've really thought about how you truly feel. Don't act out in anger. Well, you know what? Right now, sometimes you might need to. But please, love has to be behind it. Everybody protesting, I'm not going to say rioting. Rioting is not a form of protest, rioting is anarchy. People protesting are doing it because of the love they feel for their fellow human beings. It's out of love. It may sound angry, but it comes from love. Do that with everything you do in the day.
And a majority of those protesters out there are the peaceful type that just want their voices heard, that are just saying enough is enough and please listen. We can't keep doing this. And, there are always going to be those select few, what do you know, kind of like cops that are going to, do the wrong thing.
And
But
they
at
get
the
the spotlight.
Yep, exactly. And that's where the focus of the nation goes. And it's easy to gaslight everybody and have us feeling like hatred. But don't forget, just like everything else in life, even though they want to paint this as a black and white issue, figuratively and literally, it's not. There are two sides to the coin. You can look at both sides. You can analyze this. You can say, I can be okay with the protests. I can condemn, burning down buildings and rioting. I can say that I love the police and I believe that they have a tough job. And I can also say, but you guys can be better. The fact of the matter is, I pulled it up on Twitter the other day or something, and it was just a very simple quote that said that, after hours of training and rigorous time spent practicing these scenarios, a cop is forgiven for the split second instinct when impulses kick in, but we as a civilian with zero training are expected to remain calm with a gun in our face. And I mean, when you think about it like that, maybe it is time that we start refocusing on some of these kind of things. Why are there so many instances where a gun is the first reaction to something? How many more non-lethal measures can we start to come up with? Maybe we need more technology that says that it's non-lethal subduing to people, where a gun doesn't need to be your first option and should never be. Can we get to places like that? Can we invest in that kind of technology? We need to put in the effort, though, and we need to make it our priority. We need to make sure that it's a priority to the people who are making those decisions, and it's up to us to do that.
What we need is more, in my opinion, one thing we need is more inclusiveness. And instead of people saying us and them when it comes to cops and civilians, they are cops, but they're also a part of the community. They're also civilians.
Right?
Why we need to I've heard about them a lot more lately, even before all this going on, but the
Different
police
community
of
outreach
communities
and
outreach, yes, we need it, because as soon as you can go and talk to a cop and become human beings together is when you're going to be much more prepared if something is going to happen, as are they.
yep.
You know, it cannot be us and them. When you have exclusion and it's them looking over at us on the other side of the fence, we're never going to be able to understand each other because we're just looking from a distance. We need to look from within and look from a close perspective.
That's a fact.
It's tough shit, Sean.
It is. It's a tough world that we're living in, man. And like I said, as an empath, I feel the pain of the world. I promise you. And it's like you said, I can't do much, but I can tell you that I hear you out there, and I am doing my part to spark those conversations with people too. And it's as I said, a unique position for me having a family member as a cop and knowing, the support that my family has for him. And I know several of his friends too that are good guys. And it doesn't, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a systemic problem in this country, and we need to start talking about it. And it's just like the best change will happen when it's the police who are talking about it, when they're saying enough is enough. We can't do this. This is unacceptable. The fact is that the blue wall that's up there protects these people a lot of times, and it's why the distrust comes from a lot of the public when it says like, wait, why do you investigate your own people for these
Yep,
crimes?
internal investigation is stupid as hell.
Right? Why is it, if I murdered someone, you would take me into custody immediately, And a lot of these people go on paid vacation to start it off, and then it's when the community rallies around it that something happens. And why do we have to keep going through this time and time again? It's 2020 with all the technology we have and everything else. Why is there even an option that you can shut off a body camera? You know what I mean? Like how it should
Duh.
be an immediate crime that says like, if you turn off your body camera and something happens in the next 5 minutes that is relevant to anything, immediate charge for you. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that we can do that can help eliminate this that we aren't doing. And the fact is that people think that the conversation is just, it's like you said, us and them. And if you give any ground, you're losing. And you can't think about it like that anymore. This is not about winning and losing. This is about lives that are being lost on a constant basis. If you really, really believe all lives matter, then these lives should matter to you too. And I just hope that you see that.
That's all I've got, Sean.
That's the same for me, buddy. I hope that everybody out there can find that love. I hope that you can find some kind of peace in your life right now, because it is incredibly difficult. And I'm hoping that next week we can have some more normalcy again. because I know that, as much as the world needs it, this is also a conversation that everybody's having, and we have to have too, because you can't just sweep this under the rug. The fact is that the reason it's still happening is because too often it's swept under the rug. So even though this show will always be your source of positivity and what we hope is your positivity package for the week, we're still going to do our best to talk about the things that are going on in the world around us, because you can't ignore it. And we have a voice that does speak to people out there. We're a top 200 podcast in Israel, for darn sakes.
We're up there.
So we're going to use that voice to cast out to the people who do listen and say, guys, I hope you're hanging in there. If there's anything that you ever need, you can always reach out. You know that I'm that helping hand. I absolutely care about you guys from the bottom of my heart, and that extends to a lot more than just the people who listen to this show. It goes for those total strangers out there as well. But I hope that you guys can spread some love, tackle today, and as always, make the best of what's around.